Darkness filled the old mining tunnels. Cold air moved slowly through the broken walls. Somewhere deep underground, water dripped again and again, echoing like a heartbeat in that darkness. A soft blue light blinked weakly. It came from a young alien girl lying inside a deep, dirty well. Her skin, pale and cracked, glowed faintly every time she tried to breathe. Her eyes were half open, staring at the endless shadows above her. She had been left there, left to die by her own people. Her name was Lyra, and she had once been a scout for her race. Her mission was to study the humans living on Earth. But when she showed mercy to one, everything changed. Mercy was forbidden in her world. Her people believed emotion made them weak, so they left her behind, trapped in the deep tunnels where no one would find her. Hours turned into days. Her body grew weaker, her hope almost gone. She whispered softly in her language, a sound like music fading in the air. Please, someone hear me. She didn't believe anyone would, but somewhere far above, in a small research base built by humans, someone did. His name was Ethan Cole, a young engineer working the night shift. He was fixing a broken communication tower when he heard something strange. At first, he thought it was a glitch, a random signal, but when he listened closely, he heard a whisper, faint, soft, almost human. Help me. Ethan froze. No one should be sending signals from that old mining area. It had been closed for years after an accident. Curious and uneasy, he played the signal again. This time, he could hear the pain in the voice. A desperate cry hidden inside the static. He checked the coordinates. It was coming from deep inside the abandoned mine. He radioed his supervisor. But the answer came cold and sharp. Leave it, Cole. That area's restricted. Ethan hesitated. The voice played again. Please, help me. Something inside him couldn't ignore it. He had heard fear, pain, and lies before. But this voice felt different. It felt real. Grabbing his flashlight, oxygen tank, and scanner, he decided to go. He didn't know who or what was down there, but he knew one thing. Someone was calling for help. And if no one else would answer, he would. The road to the mine was covered in mist. The moonlight fell on rusted metal and forgotten machines. As he entered the tunnel, his boots echoed loudly. Dust fell from the ceiling. The smell of earth and oil filled the air. The deeper he went, the quieter everything became. Even the sound of his own breath felt too loud. The signal grew stronger the further he went. His scanner beeped softly with every step. He reached a narrow passage. Old warning signs hung crookedly. Danger. Collapse risk. Ethan looked at the darkness ahead. He whispered to himself, just a quick look. Then I'm out, but he didn't turn back. Minutes later, he reached an old elevator shaft filled with water. Something glowed faintly at the bottom. At first, he thought it was a piece of lost equipment. Then the glow moved. A weak hand reached out from the dark water. He froze, his heart pounding. The hand was small, thin, and glowing softly blue. A voice came again, trembling. Please, help me. Ethan stepped closer, shining his flashlight down the shaft. And there she was, Lyra, her body half submerged, her silver hair tangled in mud. Her strange eyes looked up at him, filled with fear and hope. He didn't understand how she could be alive. She wasn't human, that much was clear, but she looked fragile, terrified, and her voice, though alien, sounded like a child asking not to be forgotten. Ethan's training screamed to report it, but his heart whispered to save her. He lowered a rope and climbed down carefully. When he reached her, she tried to back away, weakly shaking her head. Don't hurt me, she said in broken English. Ethan raised his hands slowly. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help. Her glowing eyes blinked in disbelief. No one had ever said that to her before. He checked her pulse, slow but steady. Her skin felt cold, her breathing shallow. He wrapped her in a thermal blanket and gave her a small oxygen mask. As he lifted her, her fingers touched his arm. A faint light spread across her skin. It was as if she was absorbing his warmth. His energy. Ethan stared for a second. Amazed, but he didn't stop, climbing back up with her in his arms. He felt the tunnel shake slightly. A deep, metallic echo rolled through the ground. He looked up. Dust was falling from the ceiling. Somewhere above, machines had come to life. He didn't know it yet, but Lyra's people had returned. Not to save her, but to erase her. The first drone's red light flashed briefly in the dark tunnel above him. Ethan held her tighter and whispered, "Hang on. We're getting out of here," her faint voice answered. "You came for me." And for the first time in her life, Lyra smiled, even in the cold darkness. The camera could fade out here, showing the faint blue light of her skin mixing with Ethan's flashlight. Two beings, one human and one alien, trapped deep below the earth, both unaware that this night would change everything. Because sometimes, hope doesn't come from the stars. Sometimes, it comes from one human who dares to care. The tunnel shook again as Ethan held Lyra close. He could feel her trembling, her heartbeat weak and uneven. The faint blue glow of her skin lit the tunnel walls like ghostly fire. Every shadow seemed alive. Every sound behind them made him turn. But he didn't stop climbing. He had promised her she wouldn't die down here. And he meant it. When he finally reached the top of the shaft, he pulled her onto the floor. Gasping for air, his flashlight flickered, showing the dirt, rust, and broken pipes around them. Lyra coughed weakly. Her breath sounding almost metallic, Ethan knelt beside her, adjusting the oxygen mask and whispering softly, "You're okay now. You're safe." She looked at him with wide, silver eyes, not understanding his words completely. But she could feel the warmth in his voice, the kindness she had never known. He checked his scanner again. Her temperature was dropping fast, and her pulse was unstable. He had to move her somewhere warmer, somewhere with clean air. But the nearest exit was miles away, and the tunnel system was unstable. He thought for a moment, then decided to take her to an old maintenance room he had passed earlier. It wasn't perfect, but it would give them shelter. Lyra tried to speak, her voice thin and shaky. "Why? Help me." Ethan paused, staring at her. Her question hit deeper than he expected. "Because you asked," he said simply. She blinked slowly, like she was trying to understand a language beyond words. In her world, help was given only for power or order, never for kindness. He lifted her carefully again. Her body was light, almost weightless, as they moved through the dark tunnels. Strange noises echoed from behind, low hums, clicking sounds, like machines searching through the dark. Lyra's eyes widened. "They come," she whispered. "They find me." Ethan looked back, but saw nothing. Only darkness stretching behind them. Still, he knew she wasn't imagining it. Something else was down here, and it was moving closer. They reached the maintenance room, a small metal chamber filled with broken tools and dust. Ethan placed her gently on the ground and shut the rusted door. He turned on a small battery lamp, filling the room with warm yellow light. Lyra flinched at the sudden brightness, covering her eyes. Her alien skin shimmered like liquid light, and her veins glowed faintly under her skin. Ethan stared for a moment, fascinated and worried. He had never seen anything like her. She looked fragile, but strangely beautiful, a mix of alien grace and childlike fear. He gave her a small pack of water. She didn't seem to understand what it was, so he opened it and poured a little into her hand. She stared at it, then slowly drank. Her throat made a faint sound, almost like music, when she finished. She looked at him again and said softly, "You? Human?" Ethan smiled a little. "Yeah, that's me, Ethan." She tried to repeat. "E." And then added weakly, "Lyra," pointing to herself. Their names hung in the air. A small bridge between two worlds. Outside, the noise returned, louder now. Ethan dimmed the lamp and listened. Through the wall, he could hear faint metallic footsteps. Lyra tensed, her breathing fast. "They kill me." "No mistake?" "They erase me," she whispered. Ethan frowned. "Who are they?" "My people," she said, her eyes shining with sadness. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Her own people had come not to rescue her, but to finish what they started. He looked around the room and found an old metal pipe and a control panel. If those machines came in, he'd have to fight. But before he could plan, the sound stopped. Silence filled the tunnel again. Heavy and strange, he waited, listening for movement, then slowly turned the light back on. Lyra was staring at him with tears glowing in her eyes. "You not leave me?" she asked. Ethan shook his head. "No, not now, not ever." For a long moment, they sat in silence. Only the faint hum of the broken systems filled the air. Ethan wrapped her blanket tighter and checked his scanner again. Her pulse was stronger now, the oxygen helping her stabilize. But she was still weak, still afraid. He wanted to ask her everything, where she came from, why she was here. But one look at her face told him she wasn't ready, right now. All she needed was to believe she wasn't alone anymore. The lamp flickered once more. Outside, the shadows moved again. Slow and patient, Ethan held his breath. Ready to defend her if needed, Lyra looked at him, then reached out and touched his hand gently. Her voice was quiet but filled with emotion. "My world? No mercy," she said. "My world? No mercy," she said. Ethan nodded slowly. "Then maybe it's time someone showed them." She didn't understand the words completely, but she understood his tone. For the first time in her life, she felt something she had never known, safety. And deep inside the tunnels, the machines kept searching. Their red lights glowed through the dark like angry eyes. The hunt wasn't over, but now the alien girl wasn't alone. And the human who found her had no idea that saving her would change everything. Above them, the surface world slept peacefully, unaware that in the depths below, two hearts, one human, one alien, had just formed a bond that could shake the stars. The silence didn't last long. A low, metallic hum echoed through the tunnels, slow and deep. Ethan froze, his ears catching every vibration through the walls. He turned off the small lamp, letting darkness swallow them again. Lyra's eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, fear spreading across her face. "They are here," she whispered, her voice trembling like a broken signal. "They find me. They kill me." Ethan moved closer and whispered, "Stay quiet. Don't move." He grabbed the metal pipe from the ground and crouched near the door. His heart beat fast, his breathing slow and careful. The sound grew louder, followed by a strange clicking noise. It wasn't footsteps, it was machines, the same ones Lyra had warned him about. Her own people's security drones, hunting her down outside the door. A red light flickered across the walls. Shadows stretched and twisted as the drones scanned every tunnel. Ethan could hear the faint whirring of their engines and the hiss of their sensors. Lyra clutched the edge of her blanket, her small body shaking. Ethan turned his head toward her and put a finger to his lips. She nodded, but her glowing eyes betrayed her fear. The first drone passed their hiding spot. Ethan could see its silhouette through the small crack in the door. It looked like a floating sphere of metal. Covered in blades and lights, he held his breath, praying it wouldn't detect them. For a moment, the red light stopped right at their door. Ethan's pulse raced, his hand gripping the pipe tighter. But then, the light moved on, and the hum faded slightly. He exhaled slowly, his body tense but still alive. Lyra looked up at him and whispered, "They not stop, they always find." Ethan nodded. "Then we move before they do." He checked his scanner. Several drones were patrolling the lower tunnels. They had to head toward the old transport line, the only path leading to the surface. He helped Lyra stand, her legs still weak, but trying to follow. Step by step, they slipped through the darkness. Every sound, every drop of water, felt like a threat as they turned a corner. A sudden flash of red light filled the tunnel. Ethan pulled Lyra behind a support beam, just as a drone hovered past. Its sensors scanned the ground, the walls, even the air temperature. Lyra held her breath, her fingers clutching his arm tightly. The drone beeped once, then stopped. A strange buzzing filled the air. It had detected movement. Ethan's heart sank. "Run," he whispered. They sprinted through the narrow tunnel, the drone's alarm echoing behind them. Beams of red light cut through the darkness. Scanning fast, Ethan turned sharply into a side passage, half carrying Lyra as debris fell from above. A sharp beam grazed his shoulder, burning through his sleeve. He gritted his teeth and kept running. Lyra gasped, "They not stop. They send more." "I know," Ethan said. "That's why we have to keep moving." The tunnel opened into a large chamber, filled with old mining carts and broken machinery. Ethan quickly pulled Lyra behind a pile of crates and caught his breath. The drones entered the chamber moments later, their red lights sweeping through the air. Ethan searched the ground for anything useful. His eyes landed on a broken power cell lying near a console. He picked it up. Maybe, just maybe, he could use it. He pulled out his toolkit and started connecting wires. Lyra watched with confusion. "What you do?" Ethan smirked slightly. "Making us a little surprise." The power cell started to hum softly, glowing faint blue when one of the drones moved closer. Ethan tossed the cell toward it. The moment it touched the floor, a bright spark exploded. The blast wasn't big, but enough to disable one drone. The other two quickly turned their sensors in his direction. "Go," Ethan shouted, pulling Lyra toward another passage. They ran again, deeper into the tunnels. The air was thick with smoke and the sound of metal tearing apart. Lyra coughed, her body glowing faintly every time she struggled to breathe. Ethan stopped for a moment and adjusted the oxygen mask on her face. "You'll be okay," he said softly. She looked at him with wide, uncertain eyes. "No one ever say that to me," she whispered. Ethan smiled faintly. "Then maybe they should have." They finally reached an old cargo elevator shaft. The platform was half broken, but still connected to a manual control lever. Ethan checked the cables. They were rusted, but strong enough to hold their weight. He helped Lyra onto the platform, then pulled the lever. The elevator creaked, shaking as it started to rise slowly below them. The red lights of the drones appeared again. They had found them. One drone fired a plasma shot that hit the metal beside Ethan. He ducked and grabbed a wrench. Throwing it straight at the drone, the tool hit the sensor lens, shattering it and sending the machine spinning out of control. The elevator reached the next level and stopped with a loud crash. They tumbled out, landing on the cold metal floor. Ethan coughed and checked on Lyra. She was breathing, still alive. He looked around. This section was newer, with faint emergency lights flickering on the walls. They were closer to the surface now. Lyra sat up slowly, her face pale but determined. "They never stop," she whispered. "They fear what I saw." Ethan looked at her curiously. "What did you see?" She looked at him for a long moment and said softly, "That your kind has heart." Ethan didn't know what to say. He just smiled and helped her stand again. The danger wasn't over, not even close. But he had made a choice. He wasn't leaving her. No matter what, somewhere above, the first rays of dawn touched the edge of the surface world. And deep below, a human and an alien ran together, hunted, wounded, but unbroken. Because hope, once found, is not so easily killed. The elevator stopped with a sharp, metallic sound. Dust floated through the air like mist. Ethan and Lyra stepped out, breathing hard. Their bodies weak, but their wills still strong. They had escaped the drones for now, but the silence felt heavy. The tunnels here looked newer, less broken, maybe even connected to the surface. Small warning lights blinked faintly along the walls, showing signs of an old emergency route. Ethan looked at his scanner. No signals nearby. He finally let out a deep breath and sat down beside a broken panel. Lyra followed, sitting carefully, her movements slow and tired. For the first time, they could rest. Even if only for a moment, Ethan glanced at her, noticing how the faint blue glow of her skin had dimmed. She looked exhausted, her eyes half closed. "Hey, stay with me?" he said softly. She looked at him weakly. Try." He smiled a little, trying to hide his worry. "You did good down there," he said. "You're tougher than you look." She tilted her head, confused. "Tougher?" "It means strong," he explained. "Brave." Her lips twitched in a faint smile. The first one he had seen from her. For a while, they sat in silence, listening to the low hum of the tunnels. Then Lyra spoke again, her voice quiet. "They will not stop. They never stop until I am gone." Ethan frowned. "Why? Why do they want you dead?" Lyra looked down, her hands trembling slightly. "Because I broke their law," she said slowly. "I showed mercy." Ethan stared at her, trying to understand. "Mercy?" He asked. "That's a crime?" She nodded weakly. "In my world, emotion is weakness. We are trained to obey, not to feel. If one shows pity or kindness, they are not fit to serve. I was on mission, watching humans. They said I must not speak. Only record, but one day I saw a human child, hurt and crying." Her voice broke a little, the memory heavy in her tone. "I helped her, gave her water, made her safe. They saw it as betrayal." Ethan's jaw tightened, anger mixing with disbelief. "So, for showing compassion, they left you to die?" Lyra looked up, tears glowing faintly in her eyes. "Yes, that is our way. Mercy is weakness. Emotion is corruption." Her voice cracked. "But when I saw that human smile, I felt something I never knew, something warm." She placed a hand on her chest, over her heart. "I wanted to understand that feeling, but they did not let me." Ethan leaned forward, his expression softening. "You wanted to understand humanity," he said quietly. She nodded. "Yes, and now I do. You came for me. Even when they told you not to, you helped me, and asked nothing in return." She looked into his eyes, her voice gentle. "That is what makes your kind strong." Ethan felt a strange mix of pride and sadness. He had never thought of himself as strong, but hearing her say it, from someone who had seen both cruelty and kindness, meant more than he expected. He smiled faintly. "Maybe we're not as bad as your people think." Lyra looked away, whispering, "No, you are better." The moment was quiet, almost peaceful. But peace never lasted long in this place. A faint vibration ran through the floor. Ethan stood quickly, scanning the tunnel. Lyra's glow brightened slightly in alarm. "They found us again," she said softly. Ethan cursed under his breath. They really don't quit. He grabbed his backpack and started searching through the tools. "Can you walk?" he asked. Lyra nodded weakly. "I try." He helped her stand, his arm around her shoulders. They started moving again. heading toward the exit sign faintly blinking at the far end of the corridor. But the deeper hum of approaching machines echoed behind them. They were running out of time, halfway down the tunnel. They came across a large control chamber. Old computers lined the walls. Their screens cracked and covered in dust. Ethan looked around, searching for a way to block the path. He spotted a power panel and an emergency door override. If I can get this working, we can slow them down, he said. He started working fast, connecting loose wires and rerouting the system. Lyra watched him, amazed by how quickly his hands moved. You fix everything, she said softly. Ethan chuckled. I try, suddenly. A loud crash echoed from behind. Metal screeched, and a red beam of light swept across the tunnel. The drones had found them, Ethan shouted. Get behind me. Lyra ducked behind a console as Ethan grabbed a broken panel and swung it, blocking one of the drone's shots. The plasma burned through the metal, leaving it glowing red. Ethan pulled out the power cell from earlier and threw it at the floor. It sparked again, short-circuiting 2 drones. The explosion lit the chamber in a blinding flash. Smoke filled the air, and the sound of sparking metal echoed. When the noise faded, Ethan coughed and looked around. The drones were disabled, but more would come soon. Lyra crawled out, her voice shaky. You fight for me, Ethan nodded. Yeah, guess I do. She looked at him, her eyes glowing brighter now. My people do not understand this, she said. Ethan smiled faintly. Then maybe it's time someone teaches them. They moved toward the final tunnel. The exit ahead glowing faintly with natural light. Lyra stopped for a moment and looked back. Her voice was quiet but filled with resolve. If we reach the surface, they will follow. But if I go back, they kill you. Ethan shook his head. Not happening. We get out together. She looked at him, her eyes filled with both fear and trust. Together, she whispered, as they walked toward the light. The hum of engines echoed again in the distance. The last wave was coming. But now, something had changed. Lyra was no longer the frightened, broken scout. She was ready to fight for the human who showed her compassion. And Ethan, though outnumbered and unarmed, felt stronger than ever, because he finally understood what humanity meant, not power, not strength, but heart. And in that dark, dying tunnel, the bond between them became something that even the coldest machines could never destroy. The tunnel opened into a large cavern. The air was damp and filled with the smell of rust and smoke. Above them, faint sunlight filtered through cracks in the stone ceiling. They were close to the surface now. Ethan could almost taste freedom. But behind them, the sound of metal grew louder. The drones were coming. And this time, they were not alone. Lyra turned her head, her eyes glowing bright blue with fear. They send hunters, she whispered. Machines stronger than before. Ethan looked around quickly, searching for anything useful. Old mining equipment lay scattered across the floor. Tools, cables, broken batteries. He pulled one of the larger power cells from the ground, its light flickering weakly. If they want to fight, he said, we'll give them one. He set the power cell down and started connecting wires. His hands moved fast, sweat running down his face. Lyra watched him in silence, her heart pounding. What are you doing? She asked softly. Building a distraction, he replied. Something loud enough to make them stop chasing for a while. She looked at him, her voice trembling. It will explode, Ethan nodded. Exactly. The first drone appeared at the edge of the tunnel. Its red eye locked on them, and another followed, and another. Soon the entire passage glowed with red light. Ethan stood between Lyra and the machines, holding a metal rod like a weapon. You run when I say, he told her. Lyra shook her head quickly. No, I stay. I fight too. He looked at her, seeing the determination in her glowing eyes. You can't. "You're too weak," he said. She stepped closer. Not weak anymore, before he could argue. The first drone fired. Ethan ducked and swung the rod. Hitting the side of the machine, the metal cracked but didn't break. Sparks flew as he struck again. Lyra raised her hand. Her skin glowing brighter than before. A strange pulse of light shot from her palm. Hitting another drone and sending it crashing into the wall, she gasped, falling to her knees. The glow dimming again, Ethan ran to her. "Hey, easy. Don't push yourself." She looked up at him weakly. "I help." "Human help me. I help back." The drones regrouped, their weapons charging again. Ethan saw the power cell beside him flickering faster now. It was ready to blow. He looked at Lyra and said softly, "We're out of time." She shook her head. "You go, I stay." "No chance," he said. Grabbing her hand, "We leave together, remember?" Tears formed in her eyes, glowing like tiny stars. "You show me what heart means," she whispered. "Now I show you." Before Ethan could react, she placed her glowing hand on the power cell. Energy surged through her arm, flowing into the core. "Lyra, stop!" Ethan shouted, but she smiled softly, her voice calm. "You came for me. Now I save you." The blue light grew brighter and brighter. Ethan tried to pull her away, but a blast of energy pushed him back. He fell to the ground. His vision fading in the blinding light, the explosion filled the cavern with white fire. The shockwave tore through the tunnels, collapsing walls and shattering machines. The drones were destroyed instantly, their red lights fading into darkness. When the dust settled, the air was silent again. Only faint beams of sunlight fell through the cracks above. Ethan groaned, pushing himself up from the ground. The world spun around him, his body weak and shaking. "Lyra," he whispered. He crawled through the rubble until he found her. She was lying near the shattered power cell, her body still glowing faintly. He held her in his arms, his voice trembling. "Hey, stay with me, you did it. We're safe now." She looked up at him, her eyes dim but full of peace. Her voice was soft. "I see the sun." Ethan looked up, through the cracks above. Golden light poured into the cavern. He smiled through tears. "Yeah, it's morning." Her hand reached up, touching his face gently. "Your world is beautiful," she whispered. Ethan shook his head, his throat tight. "It's not perfect," he said. "But it's home." She smiled weakly. "Now it's mine too." Her glow flickered once, then slowly faded. Ethan held her close, tears running down his face. The tunnel was quiet again, except for the faint sound of wind moving through the cracks. Hours later, rescue teams finally arrived. They found Ethan sitting near the collapsed tunnel, holding the small alien girl in his arms. He looked exhausted but calm. When they asked what happened, he simply said, "She saved us all." Days passed. The story spread across the world. A human who risked everything to save an alien, and an alien who gave her life to protect him. Some called it a miracle. Others called it madness. But to Ethan, it was something else. A reminder of what being human truly meant. He returned to the same cavern weeks later, standing under the sunlight where the tunnel once opened. He placed a small metal pendant on the ground, the last piece of her communicator. The wind carried a faint sound, almost like her voice, soft, calm, whispering. "Together," Ethan smiled, looking up at the sky. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Together." The screen fades to black, and the final words appear, sometimes. The brightest light comes from the darkest place. HFY. Humanity, F***. Yeah, asterisk.